I know you because I love Soprano, but every French people don't know you. So can you introduce yourself for Clique?
Yeah, my name is Michael Imperioli, and I'm a writer and actor, director sometimes too.
So it's your first novel, Wild Side, in French. The story is it's Mafieux, a teenager who moved to Manhattan in the 70s in New York, and he met a strange boy in his flat. What kind of strange boy it is?
He winds up living beneath the rock star Lou Reed, who is in the middle of a pretty crazy period of his life in 1976, taking a lot of amphetamines, shooting it, injecting amphetamines, and he's living with his transgender girlfriend, Rachel, but also a very creative period of his life. The boy becomes almost like a assistant to Lou Reed, and you know, it's a coming-of-age story, and it's really about this boy entering adulthood or manhood, but right before the story begins, he loses his two main male role models, his father and grandfather, in a short period of time. And then this kind of crazy musician becomes almost a father figure to him.
You call him in the novel Lou, not Lou Reed. So Lou can be just a neighbor, you know. It's not really the big star that we know in the life.
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you want to say with just Lou?
Yeah. Well, I don't really reveal his last name till the end of the book, but I mean, if you know Lou's life, you'll probably piece together that it's him. But I didn't want. It's really told from the boy's point of view, the story, and he doesn't know who he is. He knows that he's a musician, but he's not really sure that he's somebody who's very notorious and famous, you know. So I wanted to keep the reader with the boy, and so we discover his world at the same time that he does.
Because Mafieux is the main character of the novel.
Yes.
It's a teenager, maybe quiet, curious, not a rebel.
Yeah, he's a very open, curious, like you said, that's a good way to put it, and somewhat innocent. He's someone who's watching, you know, he's observing and taking it all in, and it's fascinating to him. And he's responding to something in the character of Lou, who, you know, there's something in this man that really draws him, and it's not about, because he doesn't know that he's famous, it's something in his spirit that I think he's attracted to.
Yeah, I said quiet because when I read the book, Mafieux is a young boy, but he has adult words, you know. There is no big words or bad words. He's very adult in the way to explain his life and...
Yeah, there's a sophistication to him.
Yeah.
Because I started writing this book when my oldest, I have two boys and a girl. My middle child's 21. So when he was 16 is when I started writing this book. Part of it was really to relate to that frame of mind of being 16. And he made me look at that age with a lot more respect, you know, than maybe you would, because there's a sophistication to it, and there's an intelligence to being that age that I think sometimes adults don't respect. And I wanted to be faithful to that. You know, I mean, I look at I have another son now who's 17 now, and, you know, they articulate themselves extremely well. I mean, I think sometimes adults underestimate that, and I wanted to be faithful to it.
Yeah, I read that you said that we underestimated teenager nowadays. What does it mean?
I think adults always have. I mean, because of the gap in the generation. But you know, looking at in my country, in the U.S., just very recently, there was a very big movement, anti-gun movement that was spearheaded by teenagers, because there was a bad shooting in a school in Florida, Parkland. You probably heard about it here, but and these kids marched and started organizing and speaking out against the establishment and just saying, we're the ones who are dying. You want to protect these laws, and we're dying in our schools and afraid to go to schools. And not only was I impressed with their courage and articulation and expression, but it gave me hope for the future.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the future can look kind of dark, especially right now where I live in the United States. But you know, the young generation, that's the future, and that's our hope.
It's strange because in the book we are in middle of 70s and there is no gun. No specially scene with girl or something like that. There's drug, music,
sex,
alcohol, sex, but no gun. So it said a lot about the period 70s, and now it's very different for young people.
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, I was a little younger than this character. So in 1976, the Matthew's 16, I was 10.
Okay.
But even throughout the 70s and even 80s, there were no shootings in high schools. That never happened. There was no metal detectors when you go to school. I mean, that was something that really started with Columbine in the United States in the 90s. That was really the first time that became, whoa, what's going on? And the people in charge of our country don't really do much about it, which is horrible.
Yeah. I love that scene in the book. It's when Matthew come for the first time in a bar, you know, with Lou.
Yes.
He has just 25 pence in his pocket. He has to buy 2 gin tonic.
Yes.
And maybe to go to the jukebox.
Yes.
So it's a great scene for me because I imagine that scene. It's the first time for a teenager to come in a bar, and I think it's a big step for every teenager. You know, the first time that you buy alcohol in a bar, you seem to be an adult and a big man.
Yes, and that's what really I try to do with the book. These milestones of adulthood, like the first time he smokes, the first time he does drugs, the first time he goes to a bar, the first time he has sex, these things, the first time he drives a car.
Yeah, without listening.
So these moments, which are all the kind of totems and the markers of adulthood, I wanted to kind of address in the book. But that bar actually was a place, it's based on a real bar that I went to, not as a kid, but as an adult. It's gone now, but it was called the Subway Inn, and it was right near the subway station on 50 near Bloomingdale's, 59th Street in Lexington. But it was a real dingy, dark dive bar. And I remember I was there the day Frank Sinatra died, and I was sitting at the bar when the news came on that he died. So it was kind of a perfect place to be after Frank died, I guess, to listen to his music in kind of a sad, lonely bar.
If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
There are real details in the book, but it's not the real life of Lou.
No, it's not my life.
And it's not your life.
It's not biographical. There are details in terms of place, and there are details in terms of Lou's life, because Lou did live in the east side of Manhattan, and he did have a transgendered girlfriend at that point in time, and he was writing the material that I address in the book. But none of the events are based on anything true, and the character is not me, and it's nor is it anybody I know. None of those events happened to anybody I know.
What's your favorite song of Lou Reed?
Street Hassle is pretty great.
Don't mean to scare you, but you're the one who came here, and you're the one who's gotta take it when you leave. I'm not being smart or trying to be cool in my part, and I'm not gonna wear my heart on my sleeve. But you know, people get all emotional, and sometimes, man, they just don't act rational. They think they're just on TV. Sha-la-la, man.
In the book, there's a scene when he's really writing that song. And The Blue Mask, those are probably my 2 favorite songs of him.
Make the sacrifice, mutilate my face, if you need
Nobody was doing what they were doing at that time. It was very, very out there and groundbreaking and very unique. I mean, he was really a trailblazer, you know, and a real, you know, original spirit, you know.
Do you think that there are still punk artists?
Yeah, I guess so. Sure there is. Patti Smith.
Yeah. But in the
She'll
younger
always be a punk
generation.
artist. The younger generation, I guess so. I mean, in some ways, I think rap is like punk. I mean, it embodies the same spirit in terms of what it's addressing in society and what it has. You know, I don't really look at punk so much as just a genre of music,
Yeah.
you know. There's something in its artistic manifesto, if there is one, that is about, you know, going away from the norms and challenging the norms and challenging society and establishment. And I think any music that does that in a way is punk, or even any art form that does that, I think in some way is punk.
When I listen to other journalists about the book, a lot of critics, and especially French critics, say that this book is compared to, you know, The Catcher in the Rye. But I don't think so, really, because when I read it, I think that, sure, there is nostalgia, it's difficult for Mafieux, but it's really positive, you know, and melancholic, little bit melancholic, but really positive compared to The Catcher in the Rye. It's very dark.
It is very dark.
Do you
I'm
think
really
about
happy to hear
book?
you say that it's positive. That's good.
Yeah, I think it's positive.
I think it's positive
and the
too.
conclusion at the end, but we don't tell.
Yeah.
But
The Catcher in the Rye was a very influential book on me as a person, because I read it, you know, when I was young, like a lot of people do, and I think it informed a lot of my aesthetic in a way, in a lot of ways. So yeah, and there's some obvious references to this because of the way he's writing it and from where he's writing it, and if you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so it's definitely has an influence, but yeah, I think it is very hopeful, and I think it is, in a lot of ways, it's about survival.
Yeah.
You know, because adolescence, you know, and youth and teenage years is very tricky and scary, and you're very vulnerable, and some people don't make it out of those. I mean, I had friends that did not make it out of their teenage years, you know, for one reason or another. So
before writing, you starting to be an actor. You know, we discovered you with the Soprano and Christopher. You know, Christopher was young in the TV show, but completely the reverse to the Mafieux. He was
very different.
How do we say? Hothead, you know.
Hothead, criminal.
With drug, criminal, love guns,
ambitious.
Yeah, and I think it's strange because you would write a novel about the mafia or Italian story, and you write on Mafieux, and it's strange. I was surprised about that. Why you choose that story and not a mafia or an Italian story?
I'm not so interested in the mafia. I mean, to be honest, no. I mean, I'm interested in the work that I've done that portrayed it when I was doing it, but it's not a subject matter that that draws me in so much.
But you play in, Goodfellas too.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
movie.
If there's an opportunity to work on something that's good, I like it. But as far as like a subject matter or genre, or I don't read books about the mafia, I mean, it's not something that I'm much more interested in. Art, like that's why this book is really about. In many ways, it's about artists and art, because Lou becomes kind of an artistic mentor to this kid. It's
strange because in Soprano, Christopher wants to be a scriptwriter.
That's right, he does want to be a scriptwriter,
and
which is what I really loved about him.
Yeah, in season 6, I think he succeeded to make a
movie.
movie.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
Not the same, but I admired him for that because he worked really hard on his movies and his writing, Christopher.
Yeah. David Chase declared the last year that he couldn't make Soprano today, that kind of TV show. And could you play in Soprano nowadays, if there is a spin-off or something like that?
Well, my character's dead, so I don't know. But
it's true. But maybe your life before meeting James Gandolfini, or I don't know, just
my characters.
Yeah, your character.
I'm too old to play that character.
Yeah, but you're.
They can do CGI now. Martin Scorsese just made a movie with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and I think they're CGIing them to look like they're 40. So if you can do that,
everything is possible.
Anything is possible nowadays, yeah.
But you think that kind of TV show could exist nowadays because it's the first big one, you know?
Well, you know what's happening in TV, and it's kind of because of the Sopranos really changed TV in America because it changed the way they were able to tell stories, right? So now you have this anti-hero who's a criminal, who's vicious, who's the lead in a show, and that was a big risk.
Yeah.
And the whole 13 episodes and sex and violence and not being constrained by those censorship and stuff was a big thing. But the key to remember is that James Gandolfini was pretty much unknown to the public.
Yeah.
And if you look at 3 of the big TV dramas that changed television, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, and even Mad Men to some degree. And those 3 leading actors, right, those were all unknown actors to the public. Now, those big shows like that, they want to cast stars. So TV has become like the movie system was, where you need to get stars in the lead roles so the studios will make them, which kind of defeats the whole point of why this all happened. So that's where it would be difficult, because you'd have to cast all big movie stars in these roles, because that's what these networks want to do now.
I'm just thinking about that. In your book, it's New York. In Soprano, it's New York. You write for Summer of Sam.
Yeah.
And it was in New York, so you never left New York in your life.
Yeah, most of my writing has been New York.
In your artistic life.
Yeah,
was all in New York.
That's true. It's a very fertile place for that. And I got to the city. I grew up a little bit outside the city, but I got to Manhattan when I was 17. So it was 1983. And it was really a very creative place to be at the time, and really interesting. And New York is, I guess it's very similar to Paris in a way that everything is here. There's rich, there's poor, there's people from all different religions and countries and languages and things. So there's a lot of life packed into it. You know, it's not just one point of view. There's an intensity to it and sometimes a combustibility to it, but that's what makes it interesting, you know?
Yeah, for imagination, New York
Absolutely,
is perfect.
Yeah.
Just to finish, I would like to ask you the definition for you of a clique, as you wrote about the teenage life. So what's a clique for you?
A clique is like your crew, I would say, you know? That's another word that because we use clique in English, but we also use crew. Crew is your people, you know, the people that you can rely on and the people that you can, you always know are there for you.